Good afternoon to you. I am Mark Sudduth in Wilmington, North Carolina. It is Monday, the 20th day of February 2023. Happy President's Day to you. We got a lot to talk about. This map is absolutely loaded for bear with all kinds of stuff, mainly in the western United States today. But this storm, as the headline says, will be traveling coast to coast with everything from blizzard conditions in certain locations. Wyoming, wait till I show you this particular tweet about Wyoming in just a few minutes. Record snow in some areas of the upper Midwest, record heat in the eastern part of the U.S., heavy snow out west, high winds. I mean, this is going to literally affect probably over 100 million people when all is said and done. Air travel, rail travel, and anybody on the interstate systems as this storm takes shape. This is going to be substantial. We'll take a look at that. We'll also look at Cyclone Freddy in the Indian Ocean headed towards Madagascar, and then eventually Mozambique, which is, of course, the east and southeast part of Africa in the southern hemisphere. We'll look at that, and we will wrap things up finally with a look at sea surface temperatures, anomalies, and INSO, the El Niño Southern Oscillation phenomenon. I'm starting to be a little bit more convinced now that we could see an El Niño develop in the Pacific for the hurricane season. We're going to have to start sort of embracing that and understanding what that means as it will shape the upcoming hurricane season as well as other weather globally. But we'll ease into that eventually. Today, it's just a quick glance at what's happening currently. All right, let's get started, shall we? Again, great to have you along with me. I do appreciate it. All right, off we go with Twitter here. Fox Weather really talking about it. Long duration coast-to-coast storm, ice problems, snow, rain, severe like I talked about. They are covering it coast-to-coast. Absolutely a big storm system. Look at that map in the background there. We're talking literally from the Pacific Northwest all the way across the upper Midwest. Look at the south, though, that big ridge down here, keeping things generally on the warm and dry side, confining that storm track to the northern parts of the lower 48. But boy, they are really going to be hammered here. And here's just another tweet to kind of re-emphasize what is happening. That is the big headline, this big-time weather event. Here is the map that I based this graphic off of. This is the National Weather Service hazards map, watches and warnings, all kinds of stuff. Look at this. Everything from, there's your blizzard warnings right there in parts of Wyoming, and I'm going to show you that tweet in just a moment. High wind advisories and warnings, etc. for parts of the desert Southwest, even parts of California, interior, western parts of Nevada, southern Oregon. Winter storm warnings in the pinks. Man, winter storm watches over here. Yes, this is going to be big. Now, the east is empty, but this will all be sliding to the east with time. But the southeast in particular, they're going to be spared. Everybody down there, including me, like I said, I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. We're going to be roasting. And that is, for February standards, we're going to be roasting by Thursday, highs in the 80s. Wait till I show you that. It's just crazy out there. It really is. This weather is definitely wacky, and it is impactful at the same time. So it's important for people to be ready for it. Interstate travel, air travel, rail travel, you name it, it is going to be impactful for a lot of people, especially out west through the upper Midwest and eventually to the Northeast. All right, so here's that tweet from Tom. And, I mean, this is almost scary. I mean, it is. I like sort of interesting, dynamic weather, but, enough is enough, as they say. You look at 8 to 16 inches of snow, and you may scoff at that, but you throw 75-mile-per-hour winds on top of it. And, again, I'm a big fan of sort of weather that's out of control because it's really amazing to see, yes, but this is a little much. It really is. So the blizzard warnings have gone up. Travel, of course, extremely difficult to impossible. I saw that firsthand in December when I was out in the Dakotas, South Dakota in particular, for a blizzard that was happening out there. And I learned a lot from a friend of mine out there, a mutual friend of myself and Greg Nordstrom. He is the chief over at the NBC affiliate in Rapid City, Brant Beckman. And he was telling me about that ground blizzard deal, and it is a big deal. It really is. So this is dangerous stuff here. This is where the weather, I don't care how fascinated you are by it, it can kill you. It really can. So we need to take this seriously. People out in that region. Very important tweet there from Tom talking about, I mean, look at that. That's just nuts. I've been to that area, too, as I traveled to the Dakotas and back. Beautiful, but, yeah, this is going to be rough. All right, satellite imagery. Not a lot to really show on this in terms of where our storm system is. It's going to take a little bit of time to get cranking, but there's some of the energy associated with it there. This is going to spill into the northwest. That low is going to track across, roughly like this, and then exit over into southeast Canada. Why? You can almost see the outline of it here. This big old ridge just sitting out in the Atlantic. I'm going to kind of draw it in for simplistic simplistic purposes. Sometimes my brain and my mouth don't line up. It happens to everybody. But a simplistic view of it. That's generally why the southeast and also really the east coast has been protected, if you will, from major winter weather, is a very strong and persistent western Atlantic ridge of high pressure nosing its way into the southeast, and it's really going to do so later in the week, parking a very thick area of high pressure over the Carolinas and into Georgia and Florida, and it's going to be downright hot for February standards. They've got to keep remembering this is February still. But yeah, a big weather system getting ready to advance across the country. Look at that. There's some upper level energy right there. Southern stream energy coming across this way. All the ingredients are there as this energy comes in and merges with everything. This region through here is really going to get hammered, as will the West Coast, the Intermountain West, the Rockies, the Sierra. Wow, just incredible, incredible to see. Here's what it looks like on the GFS from the 12Z run today. We'll just take it out about a week into the future. There's that energy coming into the Pacific Northwest and the general cold air and troughiness into the northern tier, and the southeast protected again by that big old area of high pressures. Let's move this out frame by frame. You see it advance into the Pacific Northwest, strong low developed surface low in southern Nevada, almost over Vegas, 983 pressure. It dances around in the Wasatch Range across Utah into western Colorado. Look at these isobars. This is what I'm talking about, right in through here. If you know your basic meteorology, folks, when you see a surface map like this, all those isobars, lines of equal pressure, compacted like that, very close, you get what's called a tight pressure gradient, the difference in pressure over distance. In this case, we're talking huge distances of tight pressure gradients, meaning the translation is wind, lots and lots of wind. And then look right here, I'll draw your attention where they get squeezed together right in here. That's even more so. And a little bit darker color there of that blue indicates heavier snow rates. It would be fascinating, on one hand, to be in that part of Wyoming and see hurricane force winds blowing that snow around. I'm sure there will be a storm chaser or two, probably Wyoming Highway Patrol or somebody else of DOT. We'll get some video. Social media is an amazing thing. Very little goes unnoticed, but I don't know. That's going to be pretty dangerous out there. You also see this sort of reddish color, pinkish color, whatever through here. That's that ice. That could be layered. It could cause power outages. Very heavy rain on the southern part, the warm sector. Luckily, though, the severe side to this storm really lacking the energy to give us a big severe weather event, and that's a good thing. We've got enough going on without having to worry about too much in the way of tornadic activity as this moves across the country. But it does just that. It moves across the country. Parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, you're going to get a lot of snow from this, maybe the most that you have seen, believe it or not, in 10 plus years. Finally, the storm kind of weakens, believe it or not, moves across southeastern Canada, exiting out into the Atlantic. Very cold high pressure. Look at that, 1038 millibar high sitting over that snowpack of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And then another storm system, an upper level low, and some surface energy coming into California. Hey, you know what? The more of that they keep getting before the dry season sets in, we want to see it. We really do. As I've said before, yes, it's disruptive. Rain and snow causes problems for us mere humans. But trust me, folks, we want to see the blues and the greens west of the Rockies, into the Rockies, you name it, as far into spring as we possibly can before it gets shut off by summer and spring itself too, because that snowpack, the rain, the reservoirs filling up, I'm telling you, it is a bigger story and more important than most people realize. Trust me on this, all right? So that's good to see as well. That's out at about day 4 into day 5. It's a little bit more intense, I guess you could say, even into Southern California. Excellent. We want that. Northwestern and western Arizona. Finally, by day 6 into day 7, Pretty active pattern there. Look at that, 993 in the Panhandle region of Texas and Oklahoma. Maybe a severe threat. This is too far out in time to really worry about it too much. Now this is kind of curious over here. We'll see if this is even closer later on. 960, not too far off the Cape there. Yeah, it's a week away. It'll probably end up being a nothing burger, as they say. But that's interesting. It tries to bomb out there, a little shortcut deal. Yeah, maybe that happens a little earlier. Possibly a week out, right at the end of February. Something interesting happens for New England. I'll cover that. Well, we'll know about it Monday morning, a week from now, when I'm talking about it then. All right, a few more points on this storm. Again, perusing Twitter, I noticed different people that I follow, and they have some great information. This stuff here from John. Yeah, Minneapolis, St. Paul, over into parts of Wisconsin. More than a foot of snow, almost a sure thing. Some of the morning data suggest even closer to 18 is a good place to even start. I mean, it could be higher, maybe 2 to 3 feet in some areas. You never know. A dynamic, impactful storm. I think it was in 2010 that there was so much snow up there that one of those domed, I don't remember what it's called, if it's not the Superdome. Anyway, it was one of those domed arenas, for the lack of a better term, in Minneapolis, I believe, and it collapsed, if memory serves. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time around, but this is going to be some significant snow. You think about the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and you think, they're snowy and cold all the time. Not necessarily. And this winter certainly is proving that to be the case. So this is actually going to come to be kind of a shock for people up there, because it's been kind of rare lately, believe it or not. It's just the climate. Stuff's changing, and it's warmer, harder to get it to snow. Yes, it's happening. All right. Why am I showing this? Yes, I remember now. In the east, I was like, wait a minute, it's the forecast for Raleigh. So in the east, it's going to be toasty. Absolutely toasty. This is just a snapshot here. This is Raleigh, capital of North Carolina, and we look at today. Not bad, 65, warms up tomorrow. But then look at Thursday. Not a typo. Yes, 85 degrees, and it'll probably be warmer than that as we get closer. The guidance will hone in on it. 87, 88, sure. Some of the areas around there, Rocky Mount. There's different areas in North Carolina. South Carolina has the same thing, mainly like Columbia, where the heat just seems to build better, more efficiently for various reasons dealing with microclimates. Point is, a good deal of the southeast, as we get to Thursday, will be setting record high temperatures and probably shattering those records. It's not 1 or 2 degrees. It's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees warmer than the last record high, shattering those records. Just an amazing thing to see at the end of February, and not particularly good to see either. It's going to cause a lot of leaf out to start happening, where the plants are going to start to grow their leaves again. Plants, trees, bushes, shrubs, that kind of thing. Creatures are going to start coming out, and then if we get, and it's going to come, some crazy cold snap where we get into the teens one night, a lot of that stuff's going to get killed off. So it's a weird, not kind of, it's not good to see. We love it because we get out there, it's 85 degrees. People are going to come down to the beach probably Thursday, and it's going to look like July around here. In Wilmington, we have Wrightsville Beach and Carolina Beach. But yeah, it's interesting to see, but it does have a big negative side because nature sort of gets tricked because it is still winter, believe it or not, despite what the groundhog said the other day, about 6 more weeks of winter. I don't think so. All right. Like I said, severe weather, not a big problem today, just a general outlook for thunderstorms. It's not even in the marginal. Tomorrow, same kind of thing. Look at that, even along the Pacific coast itself. You don't see that very often in interior Nevada. I'll have to ask Paul about that. And then, down in the desert southwest, just general thunderstorm outlook there, just widely scattered, not really even triggering the marginal parameter. That comes into play for day 3. I suspect that parts of this marginal will be upgraded to a slight risk somewhere in the Arklatex region, or whatever they call it. So just pay attention to that as we get out towards midweek or so. This looks like that would be Wednesday, right? Today is day 1. That's Monday. This is Tuesday into Wednesday. Let's just take a peek at days 4 through 8 to see if anything else has been triggered by any of the algorithms or whatever they use? And so far, the answer is no. All right, in the Indian Ocean, this has been an interesting topic for those of you that have been following tropical weather globally lately, and that is Tropical Cyclone, or just Cyclone Freddy, in the Indian Ocean. It's in the southern hemisphere, so it turns clockwise, and it's going to be heading towards Madagascar, which has had a history of repeated hits in the last couple of years. This will be another one. This is what some of the guidance looks like here. We often look at this in Atlantic hurricanes, right? The EPS guidance or whatever. I think this is from the EPS. Just want to make sure I know what I'm looking at. I'm probably covering it with my face. Nope. Where is it? It's yeah, ECM, the European ensembles. I just have to slow down and know what I'm looking at. So the European ensembles generally agreeing on a track fairly intense there into Madagascar, and then some re-intensification there headed towards Mozambique over here, and this could be just a terrible disaster. The flooding, that's the big impact that you really have to worry about. Yes, some storm surge at the coast, but that much rain is really going to be a problem. This is what it looks like from another perspective, going under an eye wall replacement cycle, perhaps, as Andy was talking about here in this latest tweet. Here's a beautiful visible satellite shot of the cyclone, and again, it's clockwise like this, right? And then the outflow is counterclockwise. It's totally different than what we see when these are in the northern hemisphere. And again, just a quick look at the GEFS, the ensemble forecast system from the GFS. Very similar to what the Euro is showing. Madagascar first with a landfall there in Mozambique. Flooding, storm surge, big disaster coming up. Unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. A rather rare thing to see, but there it is nevertheless. This is what it looks like real quick on the operational GFS. Into Madagascar sometime tomorrow afternoon, crossing over with some intensity, maybe a little bit regained there. Look at that. Just the overall pattern in the southern hemisphere here, favorable for intensification and favorable to steer this into these areas that are very vulnerable. This will be a big newsmaker globally, global news coming up, as if we didn't have enough going on already. All right. Now, sea surface temperatures. Interesting things going on globally, and we will focus mainly on the Pacific, which takes up a good deal of the globe, and the Atlantic. The La Niña over here is fading. This is starting to go away. It's moderating. All good things come to an end, and you could say some benefits of La Niña are good. And so we're in a transition period. We're going to go to neutral, and then more than likely, some of the data I've been looking at, the scales will be tipped so that this will be warm through this region relative to average sometime in the summer, and eventually we will be classified in an El Nino, I do believe, by the fall. We'll have to just see how strong of an El Nino. The abnormal warming of the Pacific, I do believe it's coming. It's already started in the East Pac over here, the Niño 1, 2, and parts of the 3 regions over here. And at the same time, the Atlantic, that's about where it should be. It's only slightly warmer than average. No major cooling across the Atlantic basin, so we're going to have to watch all of this. You will start to see, if you haven't already, different people starting to express their opinions about the Atlantic will have a down hurricane season, and so forth and so on. And you know what? That may be true, but none of those people will ever be able to tell you, let's say you live in Houston or Galveston, or you live in Gulfport, Mississippi, or Brownsville, Texas, or wherever, they will never be able to tell you that you will or will not experience any type of tropical activity this coming season. So the numbers, the ACE score, all of that, those help a little bit, but remember, at the end of the day, it's all about you. Will you be impacted? I can't tell you that. Nobody can tell you that. And if anybody says they can, they're wrong. Or they made an extraordinary guess. And maybe just the off chance that they borrowed Biff Tannen's 50 years of tropical cyclone history. You Back to the Future fans are laughing. The rest of you are just scratching your heads. All right, so the SOI, another way to look at all this. This is interesting. It's still positive, and until and unless this really starts to tank and stay tanked, especially these numbers here, you got to get them substantially negative. the El Niño is not underway. So this will really help us to understand the pressure pattern, which right now still is favoring La Niña conditions, but I think it's on borrowed time, as does the CFS and the other various modeling. This gets updated daily, so it is subject to changes, of course, but the overall ensemble mean here indicating solid El Niño conditions by the peak of hurricane season. Not crazy, 2-3 Celsius, where it's just like 2015 or 1997, where it just overwhelms the signal overall. Don't see that happening yet, and if the Atlantic does not cool substantially, where the balance is really shifted towards the Pacific, then we could still have an active of enough season. You always want to stay on top of it, but to just write it off completely, we should never do that. But we just got to be careful. That's what I'm saying. Once we start hearing more about El Niño, people start associating that with, oh, we don't have to worry about hurricanes. And the fact is, we just don't know. You could never know. Like, just think about last year. All the guidance that was out there suggested a blockbuster, major ace-producing, rivaling 2020 type season, and we fell extremely short of that. Yet, we still had Ian. And nobody could have pinpointed Ian in June or April of last year. Or Fiona, for Puerto Rico and Nova Scotia. You get the point. The old "it only takes one" lives strong and hard in the world of hurricane history. So just remember that as we hear more about the potential of an onset of warm ENSO or El Niño conditions. All right? So, busy week ahead. No, I am not traveling out to any of this. I've got too much going on this week, including a visit on Friday from one of our supporters and great friend of the project, a gentleman named Mike from Orlando. He's going to come up. We're going to work over the weekend on some very exciting things, getting ready for severe weather season, the true severe weather season in the Great Plains for April, May, and June. Remarkable stuff we're working on. Got some things we're going to be testing with Fox Weather. Very exciting stuff that we're going to be doing with them. And so I can't go to Wyoming and get stuck there and miss all this stuff with Mike, who's taking time off from his day job, a very important job at that, to come help me out in the whole project that we've got going on here. So I'll be watching from the sidelines with everybody else. All right? All right. As always, thanks for joining. I do appreciate it. Your time and attention is always wonderful. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you don't mind. It's just a good thing. Keep up with what's going on. Hit that notification bell or whatever it's called these days. And hopefully you'll get notified when I put a video up or we go live. And that's always awesome. And speaking of awesome, I hope you have an awesome rest of your week. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. That's our website. That's our brand. But we cover all kinds of weather now because we can. And I appreciate your support in all of that. All right, I'm out of here. I'll talk to you again in about a week's time.